actually. Sorry, I just had a little glitch there. Okay, good morning, everyone. Darren Doherty speaking. Just make sure I've pressed the recording. Yep, it's all recording. So, today I wanted to talk about the new REX program that we've got going on that starts in April. We've made some pretty significant changes to this program in that the last one that the first two, which 500 people attended, which was great. They followed our Regrarians works pattern, and which has been our consultancy pathway for the better part of 25 years, at least the last 20 years. And so now we're looking at changing that up a bit based on feedback, but also based on our own interest to try and develop a program which better suits the needs of those who attend, and looking at how we can always improve that sort of Kensei principle. So with that, I'm just going to click on here and share the screen. Those of you who, just so you know, those of you who are on the Zoom application, who's joined us there, you can ask questions. I can get you to talk, so we can talk through things. We've got a couple of people here who have been on a REX before, so they can share some of their views on how it's gone for them and what it's been like since, including some people who did the first one and some who did the second one. So look forward to hearing their views. But in the meantime, I'll just see if I can get this to all work, and let's have a look to start with at the new program. So I'm just going to make this over here. So the REX website is the same, it's obviously been modified so that we can see the with all of the new changes that have gone on with the program. One of the major changes that's happened has been the price. So we've gone from $950 to $995. That's not based on any CPI increase or anything. It's that we've added some weeks to the program. So the program now, the online component of the program is actually 13 weeks versus 10 weeks is what it was before. That's so as to accommodate some of these changes that we've talked about. The other thing that's happened is that it will start on the 1st of, not the 1st of April. So if you're in Africa, Eurasia, or the Americas, the program will start now on the 1st and on the 2nd of if you're in Asia or Oceania. As many of you will have known from looking at the program before, we have a wide range of people on the Regrarians team. You can go on the link there and check out those people. There's a few others we've got to add to it as well. But it's a really wide-ranging set of experiences and scales of operation. And we've pretty well got some of the doyen of the regenerative agriculture space involved with us there. So they're people that you can interact with at any given time. And I'll talk to you how that happens. The infographic that we've got here is now dated. I've got to do a new one which runs with the program that we've got now, but nonetheless it's still useful. It's got some it's still got some use in terms of understanding how you interact with us. So by all means, have a look at that. But the program has changed, as I'll talk about now. Just got a chat there. Just bear with me. So Bill, just tell me, Bill's telling me he's got no graphic on the screen, only a black screen. So anyone else just reveal to me otherwise, that would be fantastic, because there's no point having this going on if you've got a black screen. Any of our team there can tell us. So the big change that's occurred here is not to the first few weeks of the program. The first few weeks, we've got a just bear with me. Oh, sorry, I'll just get these different people organised. The first few weeks, what we've got going on is the same as the first program, the first two Rex programs. So we start off with an understanding of how to use the Regrarians platform as a farm planning process. Thanks for letting us know there, Jan, that everything's working. Thank you. So you might just need to check your settings there, Bill, or go back out and come back in. Remind you that this is all going to be recorded, so you'll be able to come back in and look at this at a later stage. So as I was going to say, we start off with this, and this really gets us into the space. And what we're doing here too is giving you the opportunity to have an orientation as well. So this first program, this first webinar will be the Rex orientation, and then how to use the Regrarians platform farm planning process to develop your own farm plan. So you'll notice there's a big jump in dates here. So what we're giving people the opportunity to do with this particular program, and this is based on the feedback before, is to get yourself into the space. And so that first few weeks will actually be a fairly relaxed space in which because everyone's at different stages with understanding how to use the platforms that we use, how to upload stuff, just to get familiar with the community of people that you're involved with and get some of those first questions off your chest. But most of all, get familiar with the Regrarians platform, because it's the foundation to the way that we develop farm plans. And with this new Rex, it's very much the foundation of how we step by step, layer by layer, build a farm, or help you build your own farm plan. So we do that. Now, the really great news for this particular program, and it's caused us just in the last week to change some of the dates, has been to include some farm tours as part of the program. So what we're giving people the opportunity, and we haven't nailed all of the pricing yet, so just bear with us on that, but we're giving people the opportunity that if they want to come on site with us for a week of farm tours in southeastern Queensland, working with our friend and colleague and Regrarians team member Helen Lewis, and the Condamine Alliance and land care groups in that region, we're going to be spending a week looking at a whole range of different operating farms in that region, and some of those are quite large, some of them are medium size. So you'll get a really great look and insight into some of the farming systems that are going on in there, and look at it from the approach that I'll be on site at each one of those. We'll be turning up and going through a farm tour of each place, and then looking at what sort of steps might we take as far as the Regrarians platform is concerned towards developing, managing and developing that particular farm. So day by day, we'll be doing that all that week. So we're really looking forward to that as being a sort of a on-site component to this upcoming Rex. And whilst a lot of you I know are international and wouldn't necessarily be able to make it to this week, some of you in Australia will be able to. And some of you I know, we've had quite a few participants from New South Wales and Queensland would be able to come down and enjoy that week with us. Being on farms, being fed by the farmers, etc., and having a really great week with all of those fantastic people. So we're really looking forward to that. those people too who are doing that program, the people who are hosting us are all going to join us for the Rex. So that'll give us another sort of feel and feed into the type of program that we're developing here. So we're really looking forward to that. And of course, any of the participants are welcome to join us. So the fee, like I said, will be extra to the $995 US that we're charging for the online component, but it'll be fairly reasonable. And as I understand it, those people who are within the Condamine Alliance catchment area will be heavily subsidised to do both the Rex on-site and that week of tours and the program, the online program itself. So we do that in the week of the 16th to 20th of April. And then the following week on the Monday, we start the Rex online farm planning program. Now, understand that each week there's 2 sessions. There's what we call Live 1 and Live 2. And understand that when you see the dates here, there's 2 dates because when you've got a session, because we're catering to people across the planet, there's different times, of course. And so if you're in, so for this week, the 22nd, 23rd, if that would be Sunday the 22nd in Africa, Eurasia, or the Americas. So if you're on that side of the international date line, and then if you're on the other side in Asia and Oceania, it'll be on Monday the 23rd. We recommend that people use this app. It's called, or this website, it's called timeanddate.com. It's a really good website that helps you put in this time and date, or any time and date. But always remember that our programs are always just like they are this morning, at 7 a.m. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia time, which at the moment is GMT plus 11 because we've got daylight saving time. But you'll switch over by April to Australian Eastern Standard Time. But you might be in parts of the world that have shifted over to daylight saving. So that's why it's really important to put that time in, 7 a.m. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia time into time and date, and it will tell you what schedule and then that you can go with. The other thing that we do for people when they enroll is one of the things that we send out to people is a Google Calendar link. And so if you do or don't use Google Calendar, that's up to you, but it will allow you to bang that into your own calendar, and then typically, I'll say typically, it doesn't always happen, all of the dates will naturally, that I send to you, will naturally adjust to those that you've got set for your own calendar. But anyway, have a look at that. You'll get into the drill of things that, so if you're in the US, then every Sunday you'll have, Sunday afternoon, you'll have a live session, and which will be our main delivery session. And then every Thursday in the afternoon, you'll have the Q&A, the weekly Q&A, which is our live 2. So that's how that works. So, and conversely, if you're in Asia and the Oceania, then Mondays and Fridays in the mornings will be your time. So if you're in Western Australia, then it'll be very early in the morning. For us here in the eastern states, not so early. So I'll just whiz through the program so you've got a familiarity with how it's going to look. So like I said, the first few weeks of the Regrarians Rex program is not going to change at all. We found that we've got a lot of success with that, and that's thanks in large part to the great work of Javan Banakovic of All Points Designing in Canada. Javan does the most amazing job at looking at what he calls holistic life context, and he takes it to quite the nth degree, but at the same time does it in a way that a lot of people find really useful and can take what they want to take from this very broad application of holistic context. So holistic context was developed by Alan Savory and the Savory Institute as a means by which people could look at establishing a context for their life and what we call a foundation for their life. And that's around creating a context which lists the quality of life outcomes that they would like to have, the forms of production which will support that quality of life, and a future resource base that they can then draw upon and build over time in the community and landscape that they live in. And so we find that that's really important for people to start with when they're doing the recs and to doing farm planning period. You've got to have a really good foundation of decision making and to make the plethora of decisions that you'll make affecting you, your family, your landscape, your enterprise, and your community. So it's really important to have that foundation. That's why we spend 2 weeks. It's the only part of the program that we spend 2 weeks on. That's because we think that the climate of the mind is so important to get sorted. Obviously, where we are as a species and where we are as a planet has largely been determined as a result of human decision making. So it's only natural that one should focus at the top of the table on this part of the whole program. So we spend the first week of that, or week 2, we spend with holistic context for farm planning. And so you get to understand what a holistic context is and how it works in with farm planning. And then in the second week, week 3, is where you look at doing you're developing a holistic context of your own. And so that will be with your family, etc. Now, I should mention just at this point, because I didn't before, that the pricing that we have for the Regrarians Rex program is based per project, not per person. So if you're one person working on a project, then it's $9.95. But if there's 6 people in your family who are all working on the same farm enterprise, then it's $9.95 for the whole project. So it's a per project or price that we have. So what we recommend is therefore that, and this is what's happened with a number of organizations, enterprises, families, is that they all get together and develop their joint and individual holistic context. And then we as a community within the Regrarians team and otherwise then support you in that development. Check in on you. You tag us, as I'll show you soon. You tag us with what you've done, and we will then help you develop that further through this process. So we're really, really stoked to be able to do that. It's a really supported and foundational piece to all of this. And then we get into the bits that people tend to like more of, and that's the farm mapping and all of that. So when we look at a farm plan is not a farm map. It's a component of what a farm plan is. You know, getting you and your enterprise and your ambitions right is a really big part of what we call a farm plan. So now we get into creating a farm map and the keyline plan. So week 4, what you'll do is we'll show you how to use Google Earth. And great thing is now we've got 2 other Rexes nearly behind us. At the end of this week, we'll have our second Rex completed. Is that we've now got about 40 different webinars, or actually 43 different webinars that you can go back in and look at. So when I did the first Rex, because we haven't developed it like some courses have, where you just develop one webinar and then that becomes the stock standard webinar. We change webinars every Rex because we want to keep things fresh. We want to keep responding to the feedback of people, and we want to keep giving you a different set of tools and options that you may not have seen before, and a different voice. So with that, you can go back and look at the webinars that we did on this topic before, and which will be really helpful to you. Plus, you can look at the new one. You can go back and look at, as I'll show you in a moment, in our workplace, you can go and look at the work that other people have done in this space to get some cues. We can tag you to link into those so that you can look at those as well. So really important for us to develop that really solid farm map. We use Google Earth to do that because it's free and it's relatively easy to use. It's got some bits which are a bit painful, but we help to overcome that by some of the ways that we help you set up your Google Earth folders. And again, we use the Regrarians platform, as I say here, for the natural order of these folders, and it makes it a heck of a lot easier to negotiate your way around or navigate your way around the app, and then build the other part of this, which is the keyline plan. So understanding the keyline geography of your landscape is a really foundational part to our program and our platform. And so we really encourage you to spend the time on doing that this week as well. And again, because we've got all of the work that people have done before us, people just like yourselves, varying different skills and understandings and different landscape literacy and different maps and different land shapes, you can go back and have a look at some of those and go, right, I get that, or how that works, and so on. Plus, again, you've got all of us. I'm one of the most experienced keyline practitioners in the world. Grew up on a keyline farm. I've been doing keyline planning on over 3,000 properties now over the last 25 years. So I think I understand it reasonably well, and I'm sure that I'll be able to help you understand it better as well. So the next step is, this is where we really start to change things from where we were on the first program, is by week 5 we get to site analysis. So on the old program, this was down the line. I think it was week 7. We've brought this further up so that it fits in with the layer by layer approach that we're taking with this particular Rex. So with this Rex, we're going with geography. So you've done geography here with the farm map, but you're getting yourself ready for the analysis on week 5. So here we get into site analysis, and this is where, with my dear friend and colleague and Regrarians team member, Graham Hand, we'll look at site analysis like you perhaps haven't looked at it before, because we're melding a whole lot of methodologies here. So we'll look at some of Kirk Gadzier's work with his bullseye method, which is a really good technique for doing landscape analysis. But we'll also look at, with Graham, ecosystem processes and landscape function analysis. So landscape function is a really great thing to learn, because when you understand how to look at a landscape through that lens, which is, believe me, relatively simple, then it opens up your ability to be able to see whether your landscape is going forwards or backwards as a result of your management. Even when you're driving past in a car, but certainly when you're walking over your landscape, you'll be able to go, right, I can see I'm actually going forwards or I'm going away from the direction I want to go in. So that's a really key core part of our approach to site analysis. And then from that, we start to build up into some of the other methods that people use, such as in permaculture design, where site analysis is quite deep and developed, where you're looking at a whole range of different things, such as sector analysis, which way winds are coming from, and fire directions and rain and views and all of those sorts of things, to all of the other stuff. What does your landscape look like? What land classes do you use? So we go, when we're using methods from the soil conservation methodology, which has been around for 80 or 90 years now, and so on. So we use those methods as well. It's really important to understand the Regrarians and our approach within the Regrarians platform. We don't just stick to one methodology. We look at whatever is the best thing for everybody and how that all works, and for every site. Think of it like a toolbox with a whole unending number of tools in there that you can reflect on and then go and apply to your landscape and to your farm and enterprise. So the next thing that we're looking at is the water layer, and this will be an intense week if they haven't been already. And with the water layer, what we'll look at is focusing, is focusing on water storage, water harvesting, reticulation, and treatment options. So, how do you actually how do you get more? What sort of water, or what a volume of water do you have in your landscape? How much water do you need? All of that sort of thing. So we try and work on that nexus between need and quantity available. Um, and then how do we develop that? And what quality waters do you have, and so on. So we'll look at that. We'll look at water through that lens and try and have you to then work on building some sort of water layer. So focusing just for that week, just on water. So what water storages you might need. Do you need to build a well or a bore or whatever? Is it ponds or dams that you need to do? What are you doing about roof catchment? Are you catching water off there? Do you need any tanks or cisterns? How are you going to get water around? How do you size the piping that you'll have? How do you, where do you need valves? What kind of valves? Do you need to treat some of the water? So we'll help you with all of that. Probably a good reminder that we're just about completed. We're just in the final stages of illustration and editing on the water chapter of the Regrarians Handbook. So by the start of this program, you'll have available to you those 3 chapters, which we will throw, well, the first chapter of climate, second chapter of geography, and third chapter of water. They will, your access will to those will be included. Perhaps by then we'll just about be done on the access layer to the book as well, and we're motoring along with that. But at the very least, you'll have those 3, which will be chapters available to you, which will be really, really useful, and that's included in the price, as will be. Just while I mentioned special editions, you will also get a copy of the multi-award-winning Polyfaces documentary, a copy of the DVD, so you can enjoy that with your friends and family. That's all thrown in. No steak knives, I'm sorry. So once we've done with the water layer, now we get into looking at the access layer, and this is where we look at building in all of the roads into your system, roads and trails and tracks and all of that kind of thing. And we also look at utilities and markets and labour. So what access do you have to all of these, and how can that fit in with what you've got going on there? So we'll try and how does it fit in with water? One of the things that we find with the use of the keyline scale of permanence and the Regrarians platform that's based on the scale of permanence is that when you build the water layer, just as P.A. Yeoman said here, water is the principal planning medium. Water comes before roads and fencings and everything. If you get the water right, you get the roads right, and you plant the trees in the right place, and no one does that. And that was something he said in 1979. And he's dead right. What happens is that we do have a process that we go through. It starts with you getting you right, and getting your objectives all out there and clear. And then us looking at the geography. What does the land shape look like? And then we look at, well, how can we fit water into that? What can water do? Because water is such an enabling layer. What can we do with water? And then all of the other layers, what we call the development layers of water, access, forestry, buildings, etc. Those layers, they all fit in with each other. And it's a really elegant way of designing, which you'll find, and planning your landscape, you'll find as you go through this, that it just goes, oh, right, I put those lines in, then these lines follow this, and these lines follow that. And before you know it, you've got this developed farm plan, which is really elegant, simple, and a fantastic layout, of the kind that we'd like to see a lot more of, because it does make farm management so much easier when you follow this particular platform. And so we'll look at access and how that all fits in, and then we'll look at forestry. So when we look at forestry, we look at all of the different kinds of forest systems, which there are many of course. There's obviously shelter belts, savanna plantings, orchard, natural forest, block plantings, etc. But then we also include in this animals, because when you're developing a farm layout, so much of it fits in with, well, most, in fact, all of the animals that we manage on farms have all come from some sort of forest landscape, whether that's a savanna landscape or closed forests. So chickens and pigs are closed forest animals and forest edge animals in nature. Cattle and sheep are savanna animals, but they have spent a bit of time in forest systems as well. So if we're going to try and grasslands, so if we're going to try and mimic some of those systems that those animals that we manage have co-evolved with or come from, then it pays for us to sort of build them in. So this is, you might say, the flora and fauna layer. Obviously, it's a bit simpler to just say forestry, but that's the way we look at it. Now, so we plan our forests and all of our systems to accommodate the livestock that we may well have on our operations. Not that all farms have livestock, but we think that it's a good thing to have livestock on farms. But if you don't have them, then that's up to you. So we study that layer and how that fits in with the patterns of water availability, access layers, and so on. And on we go. So now we look at the buildings layer in week 9. So how do we fit buildings in? Remembering that these days we're looking at not just homes and sheds and other more fixed building infrastructure, but also portable infrastructure. In fact, we've got clients now who've got most of their buildings are actually portable. So if they're some of them don't have shearing sheds anymore, they have a portable shearing operator comes out. So it's a mobile shearer comes out to the site. We have mobile abattoirs now, and so on. So, mobile dairies, mobile chicken houses. There's all of this mobility which has been added to buildings now, which has been a real a game changer in terms of the way that we look at these typically expensive pieces of infrastructure which dominate our capital budgets. So that's not to say that in some cases we won't have situations where people will want to build fixed infrastructure, but it's good to be able to look outside of the box and say, all right, well, here are all of your options, and you go, oh, gee, well, maybe I don't need to build that fixed chicken building. What I'm better off doing is having a portable one, and so on. So we look at all of that week, and then you make decisions about where you're going to put things and how they're going to fit. Next layer is the fencing layer. And so with this in week 10, what we'll be looking at is the placement of fencing throughout. And we've developed what we call 5 styles of fencing, and they are permanent fence. We've got permanent fencing, which is your perimeter style fencing. You've got yards or corrals in some parts of the world, they're called. You've got what we call laneways. So all of the laneways that you use to move yourself around and to move your livestock around. And then we've got subdivision fencing, which is the sort of more permanent paddock fencing, which may well be electric these days as well. And then we've got the temporary fencing, which is a relatively recent phenomena and practice of setting up fences which only may be up for a few hours or a day or two, and they get continually moved within their full layout. The other thing that we look at is living fencing as an option as well, because that does fit, and there's still people who, even in modern agricultural economies, who are using living fences, particularly for perimeter fencing and so on. So where you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just because people use living fences in antiquity doesn't mean that they still don't have an application that's possible for you today. So we look at all of these types of fencing, and then how do they fit with the layers that are above them, and the kind of operation that you're running, and the kind of management styles that you're running. Next is the soils layer. So the soils layer is what we call a management layer, as we do with the economy. So when we look at the Regrarians platform, we call the climate layer and the geography layer the foundational or constitutional layers, and then water, access, forestry, buildings, and fencing and energy we call development layers. And so we now, when it comes to soil, soil is something that you work on building and changing. So it's but that's a function largely of management. So in this week, week 11, and this is where we look at studying holistic planned grazing and cropping, and the methods behind that, and how you can plan through management to build a base of soil, topsoil on your property, and build that foundation that it is of soil surface cover, infiltration, fertility, and ongoing growth. So that's a really important week, and one where we sort of shift from the sort of more design-based layers and in the development layers to one where we start to go back into some management thinking. And what are some of the treatments that we might apply to different parts of our property as a result? So the next layer, so as I said, we'll look at that. We'll look at crops, mineral and fertility and what treatments that we have there. Then we go into another management layer, and this is where you say, if you think about it, you've gone through all of this stuff, now you're sort of going, well, gee, I'm going to be spending a bit here, or am I? This is where we come in and just look at developing the economy layer, and I'll be working here with a few really great people. We've got Richard George, who I think is on the call today, will be helping us. Richard's done an amazing amount of work on this, and he's developing a whole webinar series of his own on managing regenerative agricultural economies, and he's building templates and all sorts of things. We'll look at it through the lens of holistic management, financial planning as well. But we'll look at analysing your economy, what sort of strategies that you have to take you forward, and what sort of value chain opportunities are there for you with your farm, and what parts of that value chain will you be wanting to be a part of? So what I mean by that is, will you be part of just the production part of the value chain, which a lot of farmers are, or producers are, or will you do some value adding? So you'll actually do some processing. Will you actually look at doing some logistics? So, some supply chain stuff. So you're getting the product to a market, and then will you do the marketing of that product? So will you be involved in what Joel Salatin calls the 4 legs of the value chain chair? So it's up to you as to what works for you, but we'll help you work through that over that week. And then finally, in week 13, we talk about the energy layer. Now, the energy layer is both a management and a development layer in the Regrarians platform. Management from the perspective that photosynthesis is something that we largely manage as an outcome. So if we get our management of our soils right and our water systems right and all of the rest of it, if we get all of that pretty going well, then that can enhance the time over which photosynthesis actually happens. Because on a lot of properties, what happens, photosynthesis only happens when there's rain or when it's the humid part of the year. And then for the rest of the time, photosynthesis, particularly on the ground story, doesn't occur. So that's a function of, as much as anything else, the water cycle and the mineral cycle not working together, so that we can then build the energy cycle up, so that all year round you've got some photosynthesis occurring, or across the majority of your property. The more we get that happening, then the more soil we're building, because all of those plants, as a residue of photosynthesis, is carbon production through root exudates into the soil. And if we can get that energy into the soil, then that means soil microorganisms are doing their work. And if they're doing their work, then we're building carbon in our soils. We're building infiltration capacity in our soils. We're building less runoff off our soils. And so what happens is we get more infiltration and a water cycle which starts to improve. And a landscape which starts to photosynthesize more obviously draws down carbon from the atmosphere and puts a lot of it back where it should be, and that is in the soils, the agricultural soils of our planet. So it's a really important layer, but it's one that's largely management based. But then there's another part of the energy layer which we need to discuss too, and that's how do we generate electricity and generate different power sources. Not perhaps for now, right for you now. It might be that you're quite happy with the energy systems that you have in petroleum-based stuff, and you can flick a switch and get coal or nuclear-based energy. But you may well also be looking to strategize to shift away from that as those energy sources start to change in their supply and availability. So how can we be a bit strategic about that? So and the other part of this, which I haven't got here, is the energy of hope. You know, a lot of people talk down agriculture. A lot of people are not so happy about their situation. We like to think, and we know already, that by the time people have got to this stage in the REX program, they're feeling a heck of a lot more hopeful about themselves. And that's an energy that we like to have people roll away from this program with. Now, I haven't got in here, but there's one more week, which is the week after here, where we will do a recap. So in the week of, where's my calendar? It was there before. So the week after this one, so that'll be the, the 15th, 15th and 16th. We'll be doing a recap so that, because, you know, you'll have gone through a pretty intense program here, and it's good to take a bit of a breather and also just check in again. And so what are some of the priorities that we have and all of the rest of it? Because there's no expectation here on you, and you shouldn't put that pressure on yourself to develop a farm plan that you're just going to go blat. In fact, we try and talk you out of, as much as anything else, doing too much, doing more than you can handle through this program, because that's not financially, ecologically or socially sustainable, let alone regenerative. So we'll work with you after the program's finished for a week or so to help you to get yourself in the right direction so that you can march on forward and hit, start making decisions and start doing things on your landscape that are going to take you forward. So with that, just can't see any questions that I've got so far. There is a Q&A panel for those of you who are on the Zoom app, and there's a number of you who are watching on Facebook as well. If you are, just by all means, put some questions in there as well. So what we have is a few parts to the REX which are important to understand, and one of which is the workplace. And so the workplace is, let's go to home. Workplace is, for those of you who have been on Facebook for a while, you'll see that the workplace platform is very similar to Facebook, and that's because Workplace has been developed by Facebook. So think of Workplace as being the private, well, this is the way I look at it, it's the private Facebook-based intranet for companies. And so we've got a non-profit premium account. Luckily, Facebook supports non-profits, so we get the premium account with all of its bells and whistles. And I think we've got about 500 people on here, and that they are the people that are on the Workplace are people who have done past REXs, both the REXs that we've done in 2015 and 2016. Where we did a series of 10-day on-farm programs. And then we've also got people who've done the online REXs, so all of those characters. And we've got our all of the Regrarians team members, a number of our professional associates, and a number of our clients. So a lot of our clients that we have, our private clients, we invite them to coordinate their planning work with us and their consulting work with us through the Regrarians workplace. We find it a sort of a really great space to integrate all of the community of people that we network and work with. It's a really great space to do that. Now, attributes to it, as you can see, it's got a news feed. It's got the ability to look at notifications in a different way to what you do with Facebook, in that Facebook, when you look at notifications, when you click on the notification panel, you go to the post. In this case, you just get it in the sidebar. So I can look here and I can see, well, Stephen Barrows tagged me in a post, and he's also linked his KMZ file, or KMZ file, which is his Google Earth file, and he's going to have us look at that particular plan. Now, I then, or anybody else, can be tagged just like you can in Facebook, and I'll reply to, I'll love his post, which I can do right now. Thank you, Stephen. And what I'll do next is comment on all of these done. And that's basically the way this works. Every week, you will put work up from that particular week. You'll tag us, or tag me, or any of the team that you want to interact with. And we will then discuss with you what we see in your work and what you might need to improve on, what's really great, and link you to a whole range of different files or documents or other posts that other people have done in other layers that will be of real use to you. So this is quite unique. I don't know that anybody else in the world is using workplace in this particular way, and I don't know that anyone is doing any programs in this particular way or running their whole consultancy and network through the workplace as we are. So it's quite unique, and we're really stoked that we've nearly had a year working with this, and 99% of people that are working in it are really happy with it. So when it comes to groups, etc., so you know how there's Facebook, for those of you who use Facebook groups, you know that in Facebook there's those groups, and you know that in your Facebook interface, for example, I can just go over to here, and I'll go to my personal Facebook page here, and I'll just go to my timeline. Where's my timeline now? There's the news feed. Now I've got down the side here a range of different groups that I'm a member of. I've got shortcuts, or if I click on here, I click on a group, and that's the sort of interface. So I've got to go into each one of these and so on and so forth. It's quite clumsy by comparison to the workplace, where the workplace, when I look at my news feed, I've got all of the groups down the side, and in fact I've got all of my groups are there, and any of the ones that I haven't seen lately, there's been recent posts in, and then I can just click on them. I go straight there. I should go, that one's a secret group, but I'll go to the economy group, and here I can see Kevin Muno has put a post up asking about a particular question, and we go straight to it. So what we've done here, and this is something I've wanted to do for a long time, is build in all of the Regrarians layers. Let's go to groups. Build in all of the Regrarians platform layers into their individual groups, so that we can just have conversations that relate to that topic in that group. I couldn't do that in Facebook groups, so because I'd find I'd have to be chopping and changing between all of these different groups. When you're in this one space, it's really easy, because you're not swapping windows and all the rest of it. You're not swapping tabs. You're all in one space, all at the one time. And good morning, Lisa. This has been good enough to, oh, look at that. And if you happen to be with us as well, you on the Rex, you get to see me every webinar have a hot chocolate as well.
Made from Schultz's.
Made from, excuse me, I feel I'm doing that relatively elegantly. Made from Schultz's dairy milk, which is from Timboon, a beautiful biodynamic dairy down in the Timboon in the Western District of Victoria. So pure grass, rain-fed milk. And Lisa does a beautiful job of putting a froth on that and so on. So thank you, darling. So we have a whole range of other groups that we have. So we've got the Regrarians platform groups, but then we also have private groups. So here we've got David Atwell and Andy Promisel. So we've got a secret group where we just discuss their farm because they've got elements of their farm project within the Rex, their Rex participants, that they can't, for various reasons, share with the public, as it were, within the public of the Rex. And so we've got that as a secret group. No one can see in there. It's completely confidential conversations go on in there. We've got a few others like this. There's Agro Silver Pastoral Group is another one that's talking about investments with a few people. We've got the Regrarians Handbook, which is a secret group, and that's the group that myself, Georgie Pavlov and Andrew Jeeves cohabitate, and we manage the Regrarians Handbook process through there. But then we've got public groups such as this one, where people are looking at identifying and talking about key points in keyline geography. We've got a whole group that just talks about the keyline plan and its history. We talk about programming, Rex orientation, and so on. But then we've also got all of the weeks. So I'll just go to that. So each week, this is for the original Rex online program. So each week we've got, we create we've got a group. And so this is what you put your work up on. So here you can see Ernst Jordan has put up his group's work, or his project's work, and they've uploaded that from Google, and we've then given a range of comments to that and spoken about, oh, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So every week, so when you're doing that week, so when you're doing, say, the water layer, we'll have a water layer week, and you will upload all of your plans and your diagrams and your comments to that particular week, and we will talk through on that. Okay, so that's how that works. So we gave a lot of really great possibilities there, and then the good thing is that this then becomes an archive that you can go back to all of these posts. Or if I think, oh yeah, I remember Stephen Barrow did this really good post on Hugh Lovell's biochemical sequence for whatever reason, I can go in there and tag you. I can go in and tag Stephen, just like I can do on Facebook, and tag Steve and say, oh, here's this, mate. We need to talk. Here's a really good example of how that worked, and so on. So it is a really great space for that, and very dynamic and very thorough. You can upload files. We've got quite a lot of stuff there, and so on. Now, the other platform that we use in the Rex is outside of the workplace, and the great thing about workplace is that it integrates with a number of different apps. One of which is Zoom, which is what we're running this workplace. We're running this Rex webinar through right now, is the Zoom app. We can run Zoom presentations just as I am on Facebook right now through here, so it integrates with that really well. The other app that it integrates with is Google Drive. And so with Google Drive, we use that as the place that you upload all of your stuff to. We find it makes it a lot easier to do it that way. So for example, for your task work, each week you would, we create this folder, you get a link to this. So this is the current one that we've got going on at the moment. And so we store all of the chat logs from all of the webinars that we've got. So Susan Causino, who does an amazing job with us, and a couple of others, Dan, Pascal, and Chris, Chris Moore and Gerardo Ruiz from Mexico do a great job in supporting me pretty well every week doing webinars, and we take a chat log from the webinar, and that all gets stored on here, so you can go in and check out, like for example, we can look at this one here with Graham Hand. Someone makes a set of notes. Those notes are all there for you because I, or whoever the presenter is that week, will talk about a whole lot of different things. And so we've got quotes and takeaways and so on that are all through here, which is really useful. Plus all of the questions that have been asked, and then then some of the reply that's been given. That's a really, really good revision tool for you. Perhaps if you missed being able to watch that session that week, you can then go on there and check it out, which is really, really super helpful. So we're very grateful to our team for being able to develop that. We also have, each week you have your project folders. So what we do is say everyone who's doing the program, create your own project folder. So I'll go down here to Corey. So Corey's got his site here, and he uploads any work that he's done. I'll go to another one that's probably not the best one. Let's have a look at Adam McLean. So Adam's in Canada and Prince Edward Island. So each week he's created a folder for each week, and in there he's put a range of different information that he's got for us to then review. Now the trick is then Adam would then share that. So he'll just click on share, copy the link, and then when he copies the link, then he goes into that week. So that's week 9. So we'll go back to here, and he'll click on WK9, and he'll go to week 9, and there he is. He's already put it in there. But what Adam will do there is just upload that. So just paste that, and there's all of that information for us to review. And what he'll do also is he'll just tag me and anybody else from the team that he wants to review that, or any of the speakers from that week, and then they'll come in and review it, and we'll talk through how that's going to play out. So that's how we roll with that sort of thing. So that's the primary interface that we have, or interface process that we have each and every week with everybody who's involved. It's very, very easy once you get the basic hang of it. Another thing that we do in the Google Drive is all of your webinar links are listed here. So each and every week we put the webinar links and their YouTube. So once we do that, once we do the webinar, we then put it onto YouTube. And in a private link, so you can link onto there. Some of you will probably steal some of these now or get access to them, but whatever. You'll be able to see then that it will go. If you missed it, you'll be able to go back and look at it, or the recording, or if you in the future need to go back and look at it for a revision, or because it had some important points in there, then you can go back and look at it too as part of the archive of the program. So we have all of that sort of thing going on, and there's contacts in there and so on. So people all list their contacts, and there's a few other bits and bobs, but everything runs through, all of the file management runs through the Google Drive, right? And as Costa said, yeah, there's a lot of connectivity. It is really important, Costa, to manage that connectivity, and that's been a really big part of the journey. Luckily, we were able to get that nailed in the first Rex, so that now with these subsequent Rex programs, it's all fairly seamless. And once people get the hang of it, which is another reason why we're giving a couple more weeks at the start of the program for people to get into the space, then you're just concentrating on your work, not concentrating on operating the program and being involved in the program. Just concentrate on what you're there for, and that's to develop a farm plan. So thanks, mate. No worries. Good to have you there. Ciao to you, and lovely to see you on the weekend, mate. Thanks for coming down and visiting us. And Pearlie, you made her weekend. So the other part of the Rex, which is, I'll just get to my notes here, is Google Earth. So Google Earth is a really big part of the program, and what we have here is I'll just show you a couple of examples of some of the work. So people upload their work onto Google Earth. They upload the link of their Google Earth work because so much of building a farm plan is, well, part of it's documentation, writing out your goals and your contexts, and you're doing your business planning and all of the rest of it. But the other part of it is farm mapping, where things go and how you communicate that. And so that's a part of what we're trying to that's a training part of this. And this is, the Rex is part training, part consultancy, and part self-consultancy. So we want you to be your own consultant, but do that in a connected and supported space where you're not alone in that. You've got a community of people just like you, and at different levels, who can support you to develop that farm plan. So we'll look at a couple of properties that people have done here. Here's one, Peak Organics. So this is an example of where this particular participant did a keyline analysis. So that's that week. Now they've been able to get some pretty good mapping. You can see there the contour lines of the site. So they've been able we've talked through with them how to source all of that information and how to build this feature plan and where everything goes. And this is obviously a fairly detailed site. I'm going up there on Thursday, actually. What they're also doing is they've done a catchment analysis. So they've looked at the border of their full watershed. In fact, there's two main watersheds that go through this property. And then they've done a keyline analysis of that. So they've situated all of their key points. So they've put a little K for key point on their Google bit there. They've looked at where all the primary ridges are, where all the primary valleys are, etc. And where other features of the site are, roads and etc., buildings, and all of those different features in the site, and built that up into what we call a base map, a keyline plan base map. So that's been really good there. So that's some example of. Now, I looked at, and a number of other people looked over this map, and we said, I think that key point's probably not in the right spot, or perhaps that's a secondary valley, not a primary valley, and so on. So we give that kind of feedback so that you can strengthen your base, so that you can then move on to the next level of decision making about where things will go. So that's that particular site. Here's some more work. This one is in Canada. This is with Corey over there in Canada and his family. And they run a beef cattle operation, and they have their own abattoir and sales outlet. And they wanted to do the Rex so that they could, is that not zooming in? They wanted to do the Rex so that they could get better water security. So you can see they're just on the northern shores of is it Lake? It's Lake Erie, yep. They're in Ontario. And you can see here that they've built in these different layers, so a better quality. So they've got really high quality LiDAR-based contour map. And they've also looked at, I'll just get some of this sorted. They've also looked at, from doing this, building up, so there's the existing property, building up an understanding of where dams might go. So they're not looking at building every one of these dams, but my advice to them was to say, all right, well, go across this whole property and see what dams you can build across the whole property and how that's going to fit. And then decide which of these dams will be ones that you actually build and which ones will you not. Determine the feasibility of each one. And so Corey's done a really great job of that, as well as looking at the existing fencing layout that he has, and put on a contour map of the whole place, done a keyline analysis of the whole place, and so on. And so with that, that's helped him and his family to now decide, as we get down to the last week, to decide what's next and what parts of this new farm plan will actually happen, and which parts we will click on and remove, and budget for, etc. So that's another example of where someone's done that. Dennis Locker's has developed a really nice farm plan on his site in Tasmania. Recently purchased property down there. I'll just get down to his place. Rex Extras. No, not those. I'll turn that off. Turn that off. And let's get into his concepts and ideas. Here we go. Oh, got a few layers open there. I might have to click off, so just get rid of a couple of those. Maybe too many contours. So with this, Dennis has done a whole lot of stuff. He's done slope analysis. He's done keyline analysis. He's built up all of these keyline patterns of how he's going to install the black lines there, of how he's going to integrate trees into his landscape, and so on and so forth. So he's integrated a whole lot of different information onto his. Just trying to get rid of some of these layers because he's got a few more in there that here we are, keyline geography. There we are, watershed. Yeah, get rid of that. So here you can see the 5 metre contours, and he's put in some new dams into his place, put in the fencing. Look here, he's designed a layout for keyline savanna, the fencing that will go around the perimeter of that paddock, the headland areas, and so on. So he's done a really good job looking at different dam sites and how they're going to fit. And so it's our job now to assess that and say, well, Dennis, if you thought that's probably too much, or that that's not going to work, or this is really great, where's the water pipes in this, and so on, where are the valves going to go, what size pipes are you going to run, all of those questions which start to delve in, because here we're taking a sort of a helicopter view, and what we'd like to see is, all right, well, come down, as David Holmgren, the permaculture co-originator, puts it, you start from patterns and then you go down to details, and that's what we're doing with the Rex as we support people through this process. So got a bit of that work to do with Dennis over the next week, and everybody else who submits their work. So that gives you a pretty good idea of the way the program rolls, and the way that I think you can see that the next program with our layer by layer approach will differ. Just for those of you who aren't familiar, I'll just go back to the existing program just so that you've got a sense of what that looks like. So week 1, we have using the Regrarians platform process, which is what we've got already, so this is carrying over into the new Rex, this one. Week 2, Week 2 is where we're holistic context for farm planning. So people have added all of their work and put in all sorts of stuff in here, which has been great. It's a really dynamic couple of weeks there. A lot of amazing work that people do. Week 3 is where we're looking at the development of the holistic context. So week 3, and that's where people are going from asking the questions of understanding it to actually developing it, and developing it, as you can see here, there's Dion and Amanda's life adventure holistic context. So they've got that all spelled out, which is really great. And other people have got all different ways that they express themselves. Some people use, as Taylor Krawcheck has used here, a mind map. Different people are using different methods to express their holistic context. So you'll do that in the weeks of the next program. Week 4 is where we build the farm map. And so that's showing you how to do all of that. So building those farm maps, looking at the different techniques, where does data come from, etc. So all of that week. But that will be now combined with what was week 5, which was the keyline geography analysis. So we'll put those two together because we find they work best together. And so we'll look at that whole keyline analysis as has been done here. This is one I haven't seen. He's just he's a bit behind. So thank you, Sebastian, for bringing that in. But we've got all of these different maps that people have brought in and what questions they have and how can we help you, and is it great or does it need a little bit of work? So that's where we get to with the old program, just to give you a flavour of how different we are with the next one as well. So week 6 is where we run through a checklist. You'll still run through this. We'll give you that tool with the Regrarians checklist. We'll give you that tool to run with. That will be helpful. Week 7, so that's a full checklist on each of the different Regrarians platform layers, and that will help you to really understand your property a lot better. Site analysis will be where you, as I pointed out before, that'll be brought up closer to the start where we look at the geography and site analysis right on early in the program. And then week 8, week 8 is where we look at concept planning. So what we're doing with this particular Rex is not having you do all the concept plan in 1 week. We're having you do it week by week now. So, that water, access, forestry, buildings, and fencing layers will all be developed in their own week. So you'll get a full week to concentrate on it, and we'll get a full week to talk about it and work through it with you. So that'll be really helpful. Week 9, in the current Rex, the old Rex, is where we do priorities for investigation and management and development. That's the week after we finish. So on the new Rex, that'll be the week after we finish. And that'll be something of a beyond anyway, because people, once you finish the Rex, you stay involved. You don't get booted off the workplace. You stay there for as long as you want to stay there. And whilst the workplace interactions are not as dynamic and as busy as they are when a Rex is on, there's still people in there who are asking questions and answering them, and myself included. So this is the space that I used to spend, or the time space I used to spend on Facebook groups. I now don't. I spend it all in here with the people who are supporting us. So we spend, that time we used to spend in Facebook groups in here, helping people through. So you supported us with your investments, so it's only right that we support you. And our non-profit's primary objective is to see the regenerative enhancement of the Earth's ecosystem processes. If you're involved in that, then that's our business. So we're looking forward to helping you there. And then week 9 is recap, and so that's week 10 is recap in the current program. Again, that's something that we'll do in that week after we complete the new Rex program. So that just gives you a bit of a indication of the difference between the old program and the new one that you are looking to do. So with that, I think I've got through the parts that I wanted to. I just wanted to see if we've got a few of our current and past Regrarians participants on the program, on the webinar with us now, and I'd like to invite some of them to put their hands up to talk about their experience. I might get Lisa Kalakeranos, if she's happy to talk about where she's up to with the Rex. You guys, you and your husband Peter did the Rex that we did in June through to September last year. It'd be great to hear what you've got going on and how that's all worked for you, Lisa. Good morning.
Hello, how are you going?
Yeah, really well, really well.
That's good. Yeah, look, we came to the program with a blank canvas, I suppose. We've bought 110 acres in the Hunter Valley. We're building our home, and we had no plan whatsoever in terms of what we were going to do with the rest of the property. So it came at a really good time for us, and has certainly opened our eyes in terms of what questions to ask of ourselves, both personally and from a business standpoint, and looking at what our priorities are. So we've learnt a whole new terminology, and that has helped us to sort of gauge what's important for us now, but also into the future. I think Peter mentioned to you the other day, Darren, that you've sort of directed about 20 years worth of CapEx for us already. So we've got quite long-term plans for this place, and that wouldn't have come about without this program. So it's been quite good. One thing we sort of underestimated was the network value of the program, both during the course that we did, but also ongoing. So as you mentioned, it's been about 6 months since we finished, and we're continuing to get so much out of the program through the networks, through the contacts. And if there's a question that we have, we talk about it amongst ourselves here, and then just go, okay, we'll put it onto Rex and see what others have to say. So it's really quite valuable, and that was certainly something that we underestimated. You go to a number of other courses, be it agricultural courses or anything else, and quite often you finish it and you walk away and, okay, well, that was great, and we just move on with life, whereas this sort of has an ongoing presence now. So certainly worth the money that we invested. It seems quite small compared to the value that we've got so far.
Wow, thank you. That's pretty cool. Well, I think one of the things that we decided through when we started the second Rex was to open up. Anybody who's done a previous Rex can watch any of you can watch any of the new presentations, and we're going to continue with that for. So, you know, you, Lisa, and your husband, Peter, you'll be able to, when we do the next Rex, if you want to enroll in it, you can. And for people who've done a previous Rex, we give people who want to do another one a 50% discount, which is pretty generous. But anybody who's done a past Rex who just wants to watch any of the new webinars that come up, then you can. You won't be able to submit your project stuff that you'll have to pay for, but you can witness all that's going on. And that's, again, you know, it's part of our belief that, and I think you've benefited from this, Lisa, is that you're able to look at the improvements that we're making, look at the new options that people are bringing to the table, you know, new projects and the different scenarios, and how that can make your job better. And is that something you've interacted with so far?
Yeah, totally agree. And, you know, I must admit, we've sort of fallen behind in watching probably the last half of the second Rex webinars, but we were pretty diligent in the early days of watching the first few. And just we've seen how you've tweaked things and added more content and things like that. So we've continued to get things out of the second Rex that we've watched.
Yep.
While we haven't been actively participating, we've certainly noticed the differences. And yeah, it's been really good for us to go back and revisit and yeah, I guess as we're evolving here, we're seeing the programs evolving as well, and so it's fitting us quite well. As I said, we've come here with a blank canvas, so it's a bit different for us compared to people who have existing operating farms, who would obviously have different experiences. But for us, with nothing, it's a great foundation for us.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us today, Lisa. And it's always great to see you and Peter crop up and comment and bring forward some of your humour as well, because that's part of what makes it all go round. But no, it's been really great to have you as active participants in the workplace. So thank you.
Awesome. Oh, and just one other thing. Sorry,
Sure.
I wasn't aware until this morning, obviously, that there's going to be a farm session, on-site farm session. I think that would be a great addition. So we can't make it, unfortunately, but yeah, certainly for people who are able to get there, we had the benefit of being mentored by Helen during the first wreck.
Oh,
So it was
great.
awesome to go to her farm and see what's going on and what they're
Yeah. Yeah, well, we're going to a range of farms. It hasn't been finalised yet, but we're going to Helen's farm and Helen and her family's 3,500 acres, and then we're going to a range of other properties right out to Delby. So it's in that whole region there, which is quite diverse, and not just the diversity of farm sizes, but but also types of operations. So we're really looking forward to that.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's a really, and that sort of feeds into an ambition we've got in the future of doing that kind of thing more of that kind of thing. So sort of a Rex hybrid approach. So we'll go and do a tour of a range of areas over maybe a few weeks or so, or a month, and then all of those people who've come along to that can then join in on the online component of the Rex. That's one of our ambitions, but we've got to be a bit mobile for that.
The Hunter Valley might be in your future.
Yes, it may well be. It may well be. Well, thank you so much for your time and great thoughts there, Lisa. I really appreciate it and look forward to catching up with you soon.
Okay, no worries. Thanks.
Hooroo. Who else have we got here? Well, let's talk to someone who's on the current Rex, and we've got David Atwell, who's in Virginia. And David, I'll just see where he is. Is he coming on, or he just disappeared as soon as I? Oh no, there he is. Hey, David, how are you? Can you hear me, mate?
Doing well, Darren. How are you?
Yeah, well, yeah. Tell us about what you and your brother are up to. You can't tell me too much, but tell me. You're in Virginia. You own a store, Greenwood Gourmet, and with your wife Nina, and how are you using the Rex?
We're using it in a variety of of ways. What we're looking at in a particular project is possibility of developing a farm nearby that would work in conjunction with the store, and further add value to it. And a lot of what people will get from this course when they take it, certainly as I have over the last two been a part of even observing it, is the application of the holistic context part to the broader spectrum of a lot of life issues. Certainly helps you in choosing, for us, we're looking at a variety of properties, helps choose the property if you don't already have a farm. It gives you the tools and the context to make those choices properly. And, it also helps you in a way. One of the other things that is great about the Rex is if people haven't done it, and those that have, you will be overwhelmed, absolutely overwhelmed in a good way. It's better than being underwhelmed. And there's so much exposure to new information, new ideas, new tools and skills, and the resource group that is behind you, all of the people that are backing you up in this, really, really fantastic. And certainly you get out what you put in, but what you get back based on your investment, the return on your investment is amazing. The interest that comes back on that's pretty spectacular, and can't say enough good things about it and all the possibilities that are within the Rex.
Thanks, mate. And I have to declare that David has sponsored me a number of times when I visited his store with a nice coffee and the occasional glass of wine. So have to make that declaration. Though it's really been great having you and Andy, your brother-in-law, involved in this, because it does show that people are using the Rex in a different way. Some people haven't got properties yet, and so what they want to use it for, as you are, is to, if you look for a property, then what's it going to look like? What do I need? What do I need out of a property, and so on. And and as well, as you pointed out, and as Lisa pointed out before, once you're involved, once you get into the workplace, then you've got access to all of the professionals in there and all of the chat and the support that goes with that, which, as you pointed out, is really helpful. So thank you, mate. Look forward, as always, to getting over to your part of the world again and enjoying your company and that of your dear wife and family.
Indeed. Love to you and yours.
Thanks, mate. Hooroo. All right. There was another person on here who's also from Virginia, and I wanted to get his thoughts on the program, and that's Richard George. So welcome to you, Richard, and you'll be helping us on the next Rex, and you've got your own programming coming up, so perhaps you wanted to speak to some of that, mate.
Sure. Yeah, I did the Rex, the first online Rex myself, and I develop large commercial projects and also do a lot of advisory work. I'm advising Kevin Muno right now on a large scale 43,000 acre project and meat processing setup. I found the Rex very useful personally as it's a very excellent framework, certainly for big projects. And the other really great value is the network itself. Right now there's a real critical mass of people with pretty wide variety of skill sets and expertise across pretty much every aspect of the regenerative agriculture space. And I'm finding very valuable interactions even a year or so after I did the Rex. And the teaser that Darren mentioned is I've got a presentation on tips for kind of pro tips for financial plans for your farm presentation that I'm going to be giving in the Rexes, and I'm also preparing a series of webinars and training course going through how to put together an investment banking grade financial plan with templates and coaching in addition to the how-to. I've been doing
sorry, Richard, what's your website, mate, that you've got up at the moment?
regenerativebusinessventures.com.
Yeah, regenerative, thank you, there it is.
And one of the things I've been trying to do is I've been doing investment banking grade spreadsheets for over 20 years now. And I'm trying to put it in a standardized format, cleaned up and made a little bit easier so you don't need a PhD in financial modeling to put these together. And that will be made available on the Rex even before I release the coursework because it's just such a valuable network, and it's part of my way of giving back as well, because I find the interaction so valuable.
Yeah, and your website already, it's a really great resource, and this is part of what we're trying to do within the whole Regrarian space. Is yes, we are professionals, so yes, we want to charge for some of the things that we do, but a lot of us, like you just pointed out, you also want to give back, and so give some of the great tools that are available, which will help people do a lot better, because a lot of us are coming from a shared set of outcomes that we all want to see. We all want to see agriculture get better, and we want to see agricultural land management get better, and people be happy and successful. And so it's really great that you've been able to pull this website together with and the different tools that you're able to provide, Richard. I think it's fantastic.
Well, thank you.
So when do you think you'll be up? You'll be ready for your new courses?
To be determined. The problem is I have a huge commercial project in upstate New York that just got announced. It's taking up a ton of my time. I've got Kevin's project.
Yeah.
I've got my own. Plus, I got another client that I'm trying to take care of. Yeah. And in between, I'm in the process of I'm also looking to buy a property in Virginia as well for myself. Yeah. So I'm just totally overloaded. So I'm a couple months behind where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Probably sometime early summer.
Yeah. Great. Oh well. When it's the right time, it'll be the right time. So we'll just leave it at that. So I really appreciate your involvement, and it's brilliant having someone with Richard's experience. And I'd invite you to go and have a look on his website and have a look through it there at Regenerative Business Ventures, and just to see, to have Richard come in and not just give a little bit of thought, but give a huge amount of thought to a lot of the people who are in the Regrarians workplace is really invaluable, and that's part of what a lot of us are doing in our own time, is trying to help others do a lot better. So thank you so much for that, mate, and we look forward to continuing your involvement, and in particular in the next Rex when we talk about when we get to the Economy Week in particular. So thank you, mate. Okay, so Dave Key, you've got a question. I might just bring you on so you can ask me the question in person about clients and property sizes and all of that sort of thing with the Rex. Can you talk there, mate?
Are we on?
Yeah, you are, Dave. There you are, mate. There you go.
Yep.
Talk away.
So I run a fairly small permaculture building and construction business.
Yep.
And I do small orchards for home gardens and for backyards.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I'm looking to do the Rex course here for my half-acre property in the Dandenong Ranges.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the stuff that we've looked through and seen, it seems a lot more relevant for larger farms and things. And how I see a lot of the management side of things being incredibly valuable and very important for for my personal business side of things and the personal growth, but you applying those to the smaller properties, how do they then relate down onto that smaller sort of scale thing for people with smaller properties?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that we've addressed a few times in past online sessions. I'd have to say that for people like you, the Rex is probably not. Look, I'll put it this way: for people like you, who are consultants, doing a Rex is probably useful for you from a professional development perspective. But when it comes to your own property, half an acre, look, by all means you could run that property through a Rex, because a half an acre can actually be a big property if you, depending on how you manage it, as you understand. If you look at what people like Jean-Martin Fortier or Curtis Stone or others do in that space, I mean, a half an acre for them is a lot, because they do so much in it. So it really comes down to the scope of what you're doing. I don't see any reason why you couldn't run your property through the Rex program. But by the same token, it is most of the people who are interested in agricultural scale development are working on acreages which are much larger.
Of course.
And so we've said that perhaps those properties which are, let's say, less than 5 acres, a couple of hectares, there's certainly scope to bring those into the Rex and go through, particularly this new Rex, which is so much more layer-based than the previous one, which was much more larger property-based, I think, that you could go through that. But perhaps a permaculture course is something that's more appropriate, because properties of that scale tend to be more, and I'm generalizing here, tend to be more about self-sufficiency or sort of the more classic permaculture kind of outcome. Whereas the focus that we tend to have, and people who tend to gravitate towards Regrarians, is not so much what I'd say big P permaculturalists, but people who have an interest in permaculture or holistic management, etc., but they're working in agricultural scale landscapes, or what are typically agricultural scale landscapes, and are looking at some sort of agricultural production, as opposed to permaculture, where most people are looking at, well, I'll produce for myself first, and if I've got something that goes out of the property second, fantastic. But whereas in agriculture, people are looking at, they might want to provide for themselves, but their primary focus is actually commercial agricultural production.
Okay, then, yeah, because I came across your work there because some of the clients I have a couple of hundred acres and they're looking at the small section that I can help them with, but I have no framework in there to discuss any of the larger size of things when they ask a question around those things. And I have, even for the fencing and things like that, I have no reference in there to discuss that on a larger basis than a small home backyard.
Well, one of the things that we've had a few people, it's something I was quite excited about happening, but I haven't seen too many people take it up, is where you use the Rex as a really cheap consultancy for your clients at the same time as build. Like, it's important for me to see more people like you work in the rural, an agricultural scale. I mean, you're obviously into land and you're into what you're doing, and we wanted to see the Rex become somewhat of a professional development opportunity for people like you, so that you can go from working on the scale that you currently are to the next scale, and two, also allow your clients to have a relatively low cost opportunity to get their job done, and you use them as the living, breathing example in doing so. So we obviously benefit because we get the sale of the Rex ticket, but there's a few things that you can consider here. One is that we have an affiliate program. So say if you got 3 or 4 clients of yours to do it, well, then you'll get an affiliate kickback for each one of those that you sign up. 2 is that those clients who will now be serviced by this program, and 3, you'll get to be the lead consultant for each one of those clients as they're embedded in the Rex program online. So, and then out of that, of course, they're happy because they've got their farm plan, and you're happy because you've now got all of this new experience which you didn't have, and you've got access to the network that is the Regrarians workplace. So there's quite a few benefits. I'm not much of a salesman, so I'm not trying to do the big sell on you, but I do think that for people like you who are looking to take yourself from where you are now to where you want to be, and broaden your scope of experience and consultancy scope, this would be a pretty good opportunity for you.
Excellent. Then thank you very much.
And a relatively low cost one, particularly. If you got a client, as we have, we've got clients who I think we've probably got about 10 Rex participants on the current Rex, where the consultant has come along with the client. And so the consultant is, not taking a fee on this unless they've negotiated something on the side with their client, but their client's paying for the Rex and they're coming along for the ride.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a pretty nice arrangement.
I have a couple of clients in mind now that I could think of that I could have a discussion with. So I will make a few phone calls today and see what people think.
Yep.
No, that's because it was one of those questions in there that I'm going. Interested in it, but applying that to the home situation.
Yeah.
On the side, I have, but taking on board a client and doing a journey together with a client could be very beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, those clients then, as well as you do, then get access to the Regrarians workplace as well, which, as you've probably already seen, is a pretty useful place to be in.
Yep.
Fantastic, Dave.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Dan.
Talk to you, mate.
Thank you.
All right. Hooroo.
See ya.
All right. Well, I've got Bill Horton here. I don't know if I might get Bill on here because he's been here since the start, and just see if Bill's got any questions. And then anyone on Facebook who's still watching, if you've got any questions too, please feel free to fire away. So, Bill, have you got any questions at all about what you've seen or? what you know about the Regrarians or the Rex so far? Just unmute. There we go. You there? Hello, Bill? No.
I think the audio is still connected.
Yeah, right. I'll just go to that one. Unmute. There we go. I can't quite. No, can't get into work. So sorry about that, Bill. I keep pressing the unmute and it won't work. And what about you there, Jan? I'll just get you on board there, mate, and see if you've got anything to say. You've been on. Yep. Well, you can tell us about where you're at. Hello, Jan.
Now I'm unmuted.
You there, Jan?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, mate. How are you today?
Doing fine. How about yourself?
Yeah, really well, thanks. Good to hear your voice.
Yeah, likewise.
So you did a Rex with us in California in 2016, the first one that we did over there, which was an on-site one, and you've also witnessed some of the Rex program online. And do you have anything to comment on what you've seen so far?
Well, I also attended the Rex in Mexico the same year.
Oh yes, that's right. Yes, yep.
In 2016, I liked you guys enough in California to make another trip that same year. And well, I think the main thing that I would say is that I've used the platform basically continuously in all of my consulting since taking the course. It has definitely revolutionized the way that I practice and been an invaluable tool.
So you do farm planning consulting, or what sort of work do you do, mate?
Yeah, I'm working on a urban farm consulting project right now, but I've also just done non-commercial homestead type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So what was I saying? That
using the Regrarians platform and how that's been useful to you.
Yeah, that's right. It definitely revolutionized the way that I approached any kind of consulting or design process.
Yeah.
So, that's what I was going to say was I haven't been very active on the online communities, but I really intend to, kind of organize my life for more computer time and be able to participate. I think honestly, for anyone that's listening today, that network is, greatly exceeds the value of the course alone. So
yeah, we tend to agree. It's a pretty amazing network of people in there. So we're very grateful that for them all and for the interactions that go on in there. It's a sort of an evolution for us and for a number of people beyond that Facebook type space that is so distracting, and when you're in the workplace, it's not quite so distracting. It seems like it's a lot more focused.
Absolutely. So. Main message for me is, I continue to look up to you guys as real transformational leaders for how I approach this whole work of social and ecosystem reengineering, and definitely for anyone who's listening, I would highly recommend this course.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Well, I really appreciate that, and look forward to catching up with you when I'm over on your side of the ditch at some stage. That big pond in between us. So well done, and keep up with your great work, mate.
Cheers, Daz. Thank you.
No worries, mate. All right. Well, that about concludes where I'm up to. I don't see. And Bill Horton here's just Bill. I asked to talk before, but he didn't have a microphone, so he couldn't talk. Unfortunately, I should have checked that with him beforehand. Bill said, I would like to use the Rex program to plan out the 8 acres I just bought. It's mostly wooded. You know, that's what some people, we've had a couple of people who've been in that sort of scale, and what we use, what we say to people is, what sort of work do you want to do on that? Do you want to, what sort of landscape do you want to carve out of that? Because obviously if you've got mostly woods, well, then there's only so much you can do. I know that there's Ryan May up in Vancouver there, who's doing that, a very wooded property, and he's looking to open that property up so that he's able to do a lot more on it than just sit under pine trees. So it really does depend on your context, and that's why in the program we start off with understanding the platform, developing a holistic context, and so on, building a farm map, doing a site analysis, and then rolling it all out so that you can develop the plan that suits you and what your objectives are. And so with that, I'm going to thank everyone for joining me today. It's been really great, and this has been recorded, and so we'll both on Facebook and on the computer here. So I'll put this up as a YouTube link later, and if you've got any friends or anybody who wants to watch it, you can link them in. Remember that there is the at the bottom here, if I go down to the bottom, you go down the bottom here, you can become a Rex affiliate. So you get $50 for every person that you sign up to do that. Also remember, you get a Polyfaces DVD and a copy of the available chapters of the Regrarians Handbook if you join us. So please have a look at those programs, see if you can make it a bit cheaper for yourself, and we look forward to catching up with any of you with any questions that you might have. So feel free to email me through the Regrarians website or on Facebook, and we look forward to seeing you on the Rex. So thank you very much, and all the best with your day.